Welcome back to the last session of the road. I'm going to miss you guys. Can you guys just enroll again and come back and we can just do it again? I've loved it. I've really, it's the first time I've worked with a group in a school. So I've worked with groups online and I've worked with people privately online. It's been very magical for me. So thank you. I will be sending you, and everyone that's listening on the recording, I will be sending out a questionnaire to you guys. If you wouldn't mind, you'd have to reply to me. So you could just take me off the email and do it anonymously. Or you can, because obviously any feedback is helpful. But about the experience and what you got from it and what was missing from it and anything you noticed, because what I want Robert to understand is how helpful and beneficial this will be, not just for us to have a lovely time together, but for what the shifts that can happen at home that then come into school and help with what is a progressive education here. It makes it a lot easier to teach if it's, we're supporting at home. So if you could answer the questionnaire as best as possible and just take a few minutes, super appreciated, so I can continue my battle. So welcome to, I'll have my back to welcome to to module 4, so it's week 5. However many weeks we've actually been there. The final module of this course is boundaries. And the reason it is the final module, and I've said it a couple of times, is you can't have boundaries without understanding and better communication. We cannot expect to be heard, our voice to actually be heard and listened to, if the person that we are trying to have listen to us doesn't feel understood, is the reality. You will always have a more amenable, a better communicated situation if the person in front of you feels understood by you, if they feel that they are communicating and you are hearing. I don't know if you remember from the communication week, it is not only are you listening to me, but am I hearing you? Am I understanding you? Not agreeing with you, not complying with you, but this idea of putting somebody in a position where they feel that they are understood, so you can then get to the next step. And we tend to just want to jump in, even if it's, I want dessert first for dinner, like ridiculous things when they're younger. It's kind of like the power struggle isn't really in the no, it's in the lack of them feeling heard and understood. And if you think about like a hostage situation, you don't just go in and say what you need to happen. You go into a hostage situation and try and understand what's happening and how to make that person feel safe and all of it. And the irony is, it actually sounds really manipulative because it's like, if I want to get what I want out of this, I've really got to lean in. So that's why we can't do any of it. We can't do any of boundaries without anything that we've done in the weeks before, understanding the science of the brain, understanding how to communicate, understanding where our relationships are at and which are the bits that we're not communicating and or having boundaries around. So I start this module with saying the thing that I think every person who thinks about conscious parenting and laughs at me being a conscious parenting coach would think I wouldn't say, which is boundaries are fucking important. Like, they're really important. They create safety for all of us. This is why the holidays, sorry to have my back to you, the holidays are a really difficult time, because it all goes out the window, structure goes out the window. We need it. We need structure, we need boundaries, we need things to lean up against. We're human beings. We like to know that we feel safe in the world. Take those buffers away, it's like free falling. And actually what we tend to do is we try to fill the space with noise and chaos until we hit a wall, right? Like whatever that wall might be. And if we can contain and hold a safe space around a person, they don't feel that need to explode out into the world as much in that same chaotic way. It's like screaming, look at me, look at me, look at me. And that's always very interesting when you've got a child who starts to lean into rebellion when they get to like 11, 12, 13, really lean into rebellion. And actually the opposite of what we do is kind of what is needed, which is like calm, stable, containment, love, connection, not lockdown, because they will just explode out of it and keep going. They're looking for a place of safety, and we don't create that when we're looking at a rebel, because we get the wrong end of the stick what we're trying to do. So true guidance that actually works is what we're looking for. So true guidance that leaves our kids open to listening. If all we have is the ability to guide, then what we want to do is make them feel safe enough that they're actually interested in what we have to say in very small bite-sized pieces, because they can't focus for very long. Generally 15 seconds, like a little TikTok video is the best way to do it. When kids have boundaries, they build resilience to take healthy risks. Okay, but there's a difference between a boundary and a rule in that sense, because if you have a rule and they break a rule, then there is a fear which reduces resilience, because the fear of the mistake stops them taking risks. They're so scared of the backlash. You don't get that. The resilience is making a mistake, failing, falling flat on your ass, having a safe place to go to work out what the next step is. That's when you take risks. Shaming someone for a mistake means you take less risks, because no one wants to be shamed, ever. They learn to be more resilient. They develop trust. Now, that's a really interesting one, because actually the importance of having a boundary and maintaining that boundary, even if it is displeasing to other, holding our space and our word, creates a narrative that people do what they say, even if I don't like it. So, and I have a lot of clients that will come in and go, well, what if I forgot myself? Because obviously everyone that comes to see me wants to get like it perfectly right, which there is no perfectly right, because it's impossible to be perfectly right. But they know that they've been incredibly rigid. They've put in place a consequence that's like a bit ridiculous. And they're like, well, what do I do now? And I thought, actually, you need to sustain where you're at till you get to the other end of it. Because really, what you really at least want that person, your minor, to understand is that you mean what you say. Because even if they're pissed at you, they trust you. There's nothing worse than chaos for a person. Better to be the helicopter parent that has every single rule and doesn't let their kid do anything, than be the one that flips and flops and changes their mind and is up and down and all over the place, because they don't know where to be. And then they really start grasping. Then they develop accountability, because they believe that people are true to their words, and we model it. So they become more accountable. And what we're going to learn through how we develop boundaries is they might not like what they've agreed to, but if they've agreed to it, everyone can be held accountable, and they kind of are more amenable to doing it because they've had a say in that, and they want to. Comes back to exactly what we were just saying at the beginning, Anna, being a good person, a person of integrity. It's not gifts, it's actions. It's not less gifts. The actual flip side of the less gifts could be, the other perspective could be, I never had anything, now I just want and want and want and want and want. You know, you can't, there's always the other side, isn't there? So we use the word boundaries around raising our kids, but most of us are not using boundaries. That's the thing. We're not actually in boundaries. And we do it with our partners as well. I have boundaries. I tell him, I ask him constantly. Asking's not a boundary. Question. It's I will. This is my boundary. This is my line that can't be crossed. So I've said you have to be on time because I hate that you're always late. And then we argue because he turns up half an hour late and he's always late and he doesn't respect me and he doesn't this. And really the reality is actually I don't respect me because I'm happy to sit there for an extra half an hour when I've said time and time again I won't wait. The boundary is leaving. I love you. I'm there for you. I'm not prepared to sit there for half an hour extra because my time is valuable. No argument. There's my boundary. Doesn't need to be an argument. Change or don't. It's hard. That's why boundaries are really hard, because they mean we have to be strong. So we are generally not using boundaries, and this is, everyone loves this bit. We're using rigidity, control, and rules. Also for ourselves. My back to the. We are actually, when we use rigidity, control, and rules, being bullies. So this is brilliant. How would you feel if I was to tell you that you were likely the first experience of bullying that your child ever experienced? How does that land? In the past, page 3. Please, I gave you pens this week so you could actually fill it out. Have you, do you, in the past or in the present, Michelle, in the last 10 minutes, anyone yelled, used threats? If you don't do this, then we can't do that. No, no one. No.
I was thinking about the last 10 minutes.
I actually, funny spanking story that's haunted me. Sydney threw herself off her cot when she was a year and a half. We were living in America, and she threw herself off her cot, and I got so hysterical that she'd hurt herself. She was wearing a nappy, so she was really young, and I went, never do that again, and I spanked her on the bum. Like, it was just one, like a tap, but it was still it was absolutely, contact was made to her bottom, and it was the work. I was like, oh my god, that was such a loss of control. Probably a huge part in like starting to do this, like realizing it's so easy to just lose it in that moment. For the next 6 months, every time I said, don't do that, darling, she went, Mommy, don't hit me. Anywhere we were, I was like, I literally, let's talk about fucking karma.
I did it once, but I was thought through, and it was very controlled, and I built myself up to it so much. And irony of my situation, so Ella ran out into the road, and it was really dangerous, and I wanted her to know. She was very little, so like when I spanked her, I said like that on her hand. Notice I had to like build myself up and need to give her a shot. She didn't notice that bloody did
Didn't
it.
even notice you'd done it.
I still did it.
And actually, interesting, and so considered.
It was considered.
It was incredibly considered.
She's not going to impact.
This is how I'm going to teach her a lesson. I mean, it's not nice, but it's
shock. It was dark, and she ran out into the road like she was very little. She didn't understand the words, so I needed her to know anyway. It didn't work. She didn't.
Well, thank God she doesn't run into the road. She's still here with us. Excluded your child from social situations. We're leaving. Go to your room. Criticised or shamed. So I had a client that said, no, I've never done this. And in the next sentence told me that she puts photos on the family chat of skid marks in the toilet because she's got a thing about it. Whatever, that's her issue. I was like, that's shaming. That's still shaming. Because it's like, who did this?
Terrible.
Well, we're all human, and we all have our truth.
It's shaming. It's even just like, I'm really disappointed in you. You said
that's the worst.
That's shaming.
The worst.
I'm really upset.
Shaming. I'm disappointed is worse than I'm angry, isn't it? If you
really upset,
yes, that's worse than
you've really upset me. It's very manipulative. You've really upset me. Believe it or not, our kids' responsibility is not to not upset us. Well, respect to human beings, but why should they not just because we're their parent?
Yeah,
why should they not?
Also understand that their behaviour affects other humans around them, and it can upset them.
But we can also be upset. It's important that they need to learn that we can be, humans can be upset. That's part of building resilience. Is being upset is a really healthy disappointment, upset. It's a barometer of what you feel about something and how you want the world around you to be. So we need to be able to feel upset. We're so terrified of our children being upset or us being, we need to be upset. It's like being depressed or being anxious. And we fight anxiety. We don't meet anxiety with curiosity. Like it's a thing we should just try to beat. Think about what anxiety is. It's fear anxiety, isn't it? This is bad, something bad's about to happen, right? So for anxiety, like that movie, if anxiety was about to, like, oh, shit's going down, we're not safe, okay? How do you look after another human being that's going, shit's going down, we're not safe? Do you walk up to them and go, don't do that? No. You go, what's happening? Why are you so worried? What's going on? And we, inside of ourselves, we might put it in a box and wonder why we're like bursting out of the scene. Anyway, so criticizing and shaming, calling the names, Even don't be so silly. That's kind of calling the name. Spanking or dominating, right? So we've all done it. We've all done all of them. They're not there to make us feel ashamed of ourselves. They're there to kind of like go, okay, we have this huge judgment. Like I say, if any of these things were done in an alleyway or outside of a school gate by a school friend, we would be in the head teacher's office going, there's a problem going on. We need to deal with this. My daughter's being shamed in the playground. It's really not good for her self-esteem. But yet we'll do it at home. We don't seem to know the difference between boundaries and bullying. We've been taught, we were taught, it is reinforced constantly. It is the narrative that this is how we teach. But at no point have we looked at what are the results of the teaching. We just go, that's what you do. But we don't, because we're all sitting here going, it doesn't really work and there's got to be another way. But this is where we're coming to, kind of going, okay, maybe the system's a bit broken because actually I'm bullying my kid. I hate myself and I'm not getting the outcome I want, which is a healthy relationship with my child and my child having a healthy relationship with whatever it might be. You know, we see it in them too. So boundaries and discipline are important, and they do need us to help them guide so that they can feel safe. So how the hell do we do it? First of all, we have to really understand what boundaries are and how to use them effectively. We need to learn to be more in tune with actually what the concept of a boundary and discipline actually is, because I don't think we really, it's kind of banded around. The word discipline comes from the word disciple. What is it to be a disciple of somebody? It is somebody who looks up to somebody, to learn from another, to be inspired from another, to take on their behavior, to take on their morals, to take on their guidance. That is like, this is my disciple. They're amazing because I'm amazing, they're amazing, right? We're conditioned to discipline through fear. So our teens learn how to behave, how to teach them to be good people. Comes from an assumption that we're not actually good to start with, doesn't it? We're all born good. Big question.
I believe that.
I do too. I believe. Do you know? Have you heard of Edith Edgar, the Holocaust survivor? Go read her book. She says there's Hitler in everyone. When we can accept the shadow in everyone, so there's so many facets to who we are, you know.
Discipline through fear.
Pardon?
Discipline through fear.
Well, we do discipline through creating fear.
Do we always?
But we definitely don't learn to be disciplined through fear. But when you're trying to do so, how do you talk to yourself when you with regards to, like, I don't know, healthy living, exercise, if you haven't?
Self?
Yeah, how do you talk to yourself?
Myself.
Yeah. Okay. Because what's the deep belief? If I'm horrible enough to myself, it's tough love. I'll push myself to do it. I'm aspiring to do well. So if I let myself down, I'll be mean to myself to do better. We actually know scientifically, neurologically, that actually shuts down parts of the brain now. That's the beauty of science. They've done brain scans that actually prove that when you talk that way to yourself, it shuts down the learning receptors of your brain. So we've got big kids doing their GCSEs right now, and the narrative is very often, I'm going to fail my exams. No? Do you not hear that? I'm going to fail everything. And I would say, just stop saying it, because you're actually shutting down the part of your brain that might remember shit. Even if you think it, you don't need to keep saying it and reinforcing it. So we're conditioned to discipline. The way we are conditioned to discipline is, in fact, to create a sense of fear so that our teens learn how to behave. We also believe that if we create a sense of fear, they will learn how to respect us, on the assumption that we're not worth being respected just off the bat anyway, which says a lot about ourselves. We shame, we punish, we criticize to create an awareness of what they need to learn. What they learn how to do is hide, because We'll all hide the bits of ourselves that are going to get in trouble because no one wants to be shamed or criticised or bullied for them. To lie, to comply. Compliance isn't respect. It's easy in the short term because we get them to do what we want them to do, but in the long term, it doesn't. The minute yeah, we'll get back. We'll do that. I've got a few tools and tips for real shame, or to feel shame. Nowhere in this version of discipline is inspirational guidance, which is coming from the true word disciple. Nowhere in this kind of way, when we lose ourselves, is creating these disciples that are going to be like that. A boundary refers to a limit or an expectation set by a parent or person caregiver to guide their child's behaviours, actions, or choices. So to be a guide, to be a wisdom teacher. What we are usually doing is enforcing rules. A rule refers to a specific expectation requirement that a parent sets for a child to follow. I said, so this should be. Right? School's the same. We're going to look at the key differences between a boundary and a rule. I did actually have a question about that. A rule is rigid and unmoving. A boundary is fluid and dependent on a situation. So these are like key things. Purpose. A rule is designed to control and limit a behaviour, whereas a boundary is designed to guide a child to understand their behaviour and make choices. The purpose, like thinking about phones and stuff, is really interesting. It's a lot of work, but this idea of like just controlling and limiting puts a person, any person, in a position to have no self-awareness, no autonomy, and as a result, no resilience, because there's no learning to come from or to kind of, weigh up. And it actually leaves people with very less knowledge and actually less ability to be in the world in a safe way, because they've lost themselves as well. Outcomes and impacts. Rules are enforced through punishment. And very often rules don't really have, and we do it way more when they're younger. It's easier to do consequences that are relevant when kids are older, because it can usually be like, you broke curfew, so you can't go out. It's kind of like directly attached. But how often are like, if you don't eat your dinner, you can't have TV. It's like, where's the learning? Where's the self-assessment in that? It's like the two things are completely not attached. Boundaries are enforced through accountability. So obviously boundaries get broken. Obviously they do. Obviously things aren't all kept in line. Everything's not in its box all the time, but it's an understanding of accountability as opposed to a broken rule that I kept and I said this was going to be this and this is what happened, and they're not actually part of it. And actually we need them to be more of a part of it. Ownership. A rule is imposed by us, person of authority. Boundary is established through communication and collaboration. What we find is that rules encourage rigidity, not just within the parent-child dynamic, but also for the child in terms of the world, how the world looks. It's very black and white, because there's rules and things are one way or they are the other way. And so we limit their ability to see the nuance. And we are a generation having our kids' development rammed down our throat. And yet, so much of what we do in our interactions with them limit their ability to flourish and use their brains. Everyone's so obsessed with how phones are ruining our kids' brains, but every time we shut down a conversation with our children, don't ask another question, have a rule over a boundary, we limit their ability to be in nuance. And all of that is brain development. All of it is playing with the left and right hemispheres of the brain all the time. And of asking them to creatively think, but it's all a lot more work. It's all a lot more work. My children do not stop talking and asking questions. And I see other people with other kids, when they were little, I used to watch people in like the supermarket, and I was like, how's that kid quiet? But I always forced myself to answer the questions and ask another question, even as mad as it drove me, because I was like, I know this is going to be good. This is important. This helps them think, helps them question. So
Amy, quick question.
yes,
Get into the school. I'm just at the gate outside.
thought it was going to be something deep and meaningful. Yeah.
I'm trying to get across your boundary.
You're late. I'm not letting you in.
Mm.
Are you actually out the gate?
Yeah, I'm at the gate.
Are you trying through the gate? And
Yeah, I don't know how to. No one's at the front office. I mean, I can
I'm going to
jump.
come you in. It'll be easier, won't it? Should I pause the video or just leave it? Oh, no, I'll pause it. Will you remind me?
I'm sorry. I can.
Climb the gate.
That's so weird. My front doorbell just went. It's Gabriel. He's at my house. He's at the wrong place. Ladies late.
You can only see it through your phone, but it was amazing.
We're only on my page. We're going to move fast because you know me, I like to talk. So boundaries, when we've established what they are and how they can work, they encourage self-awareness, responsibility for ourselves and our kids. I guess, it's all about helping them to kind of evolve. But for us, this is super helpful for work, for relationships, friendships, family dynamic. Independence, self-respect, and self-trust. It kind of goes back to what I was saying about the boundaries around being late. No judgment. But that the idea that you see a pattern that is really unhealthy for your relationship, and like there's this weird kind of like, we think if we put a boundary, we lock down and we kind of have a boundary before it's even had a chance to raise the fact that something's an issue for us and it can't play out or carry on. That's not setting a boundary. That's calling something as a situation and then discussing what the next step would be, and then it happening again, and then it happening again. It's a bit like that. Remember the green, amber, red light system with lying? It's a bit like, kind of have to do the same thing with boundaries. And it's a big thing when the kids get a little bit older and they do stupid things like, jumping off, and they, crossing roads badly, or jumping off stupid things as they get to kind of like 10, 11, 12. And then they start doing really stupid things like breaking into train stations and graffitiing and staying out too late, getting drunks in fields and all that kind of stuff. Parents lock down immediately rather than using that. Like, okay, this is something that's happened. This is a great red flag that we need to look at. And this is where we discuss what is acceptable and not. There's zero need for punishment. Well, I don't believe there's need for punishment ever, but there's zero even need for consequence, because there needs to be a conversation about that was a really stupid thing to have done. This is why, and that's where the communication of week 3 is really helpful. And then we move forward. You find out they've done it 2 weeks later, then it's like, okay, we need to relook at this again, because you're putting yourself in danger, and that's a priority that we have to be focusing on. What's going to happen if this happens again? And then it happens again, and then we implement. It's a traffic light system. Can't just jump in with the rule was broken. This is this terrible punishment and consequence. We grow it. Anyway, where do you think you might use rules over boundaries in your life with your families? Obviously, I've got quite young things in here as well, because we've done this with in the other course as well. So we've looked at like food and eating vegetables. It's really weird. But healthy food choices, we have to be aware of sugar intake and things like that. How rigid are we? So are we in flow, or are we more rigid? And make some notes. Take a couple of minutes, make some notes, have some thoughts, share them. Just be aware. This is not really, again, we're not here to judge. We're here to just kind of be aware of like, I'm really rigid around that. I have rules around, my rule around language, my boundaries around language. You can't spell it, you can't say it. And you have to use it in context now they're older. Has to be correct. Has to be correct English. Does anyone have anything to share? Are they noticing anything? Does anyone have any thoughts about where they're at? Maybe they're like, you guys are like, actually, I feel really good about boundaries. I'm better than I thought.
On that one. On everything else you've always questioned us on, I'm very quick to say I've done it, but actually I think I'm bound with boundaries versus rules. Not always, and I'm very good at not sticking to what I say.
Well, we need to do that.
I'm very good at doing not sticking to what I say.
Well, when we don't stick to what we say, we can't have an
this
expectation. Can't have an
I know.
expectation if you're not sticking to an expectation not being met, what the outcome's going to be. You can't.
Oh my God, I'm terrible. I'm very quick to say, yeah, no, I'm really bad at that. But when looking at this list with that, I think I could say that I've got boundaries rather than rules at this list.
Anyone else?
So the boundary, I'm quite boundaried as a person, but it is very hard, like having with a child. Obviously, it's different.
What part of having a child is easy? Please shed some light.
Like, something around food, like probably because I mean some of those I haven't really got to those yet. So,
Yeah.
You know, she's still young. But we try to explain to her about like with food. Food is very difficult in our house.
Is it?
With her, yeah. She eats, but it's really difficult, and it's like and the sugar and wanting sugar all the time, obsessed with sugar.
Yeah.
We try to explain and we discuss and we do all those things.
And she still doesn't want to hear it.
She doesn't want it. She just
because sugar tastes good.
It's awful. It's just the worst for her.
Wait, so when you say we try to explain to her, are you asking her to be on your team?
No, to be honest, maybe I don't know what we're asking of her. We try to tell, she wants to know why, and we discuss it. We tell her, we don't say, no, you can't have sugar. That's it. We explain to her why sugar is not good for her. Not just like the general reasons of sugar is just bad for you, but like she has like a very specific problem with her teeth. So we explain it to her, and like she does actually start to get it. But then at the dinner table, like we have terrible times at the dinner table. Like it's just not with not eating, and it does become a power struggle, and it's hard.
Does she not eat because she wants the sugar?
She's just distracted. I don't know. Maybe she does want the sugar. I'm not sure because she doesn't say I just want sugar. But
and what's she not eating?
She'll eat. She just gets she's very distracted. Like the most distracted she is at the table.
Well, that's really interesting. Because what is the environment that we're creating that she is not comfortable to be sitting around food?
I know. I don't know, to be honest. But we've noticed that this is like the most distracted and difficult time that we have with her.
Would it be really interesting to pull that apart and understand? Because there's a need not being met.
Yeah.
And we try to keep things conventional. Dinner time is at a table or whatever it is, and we eat the things on our plates, and actually we get very stuck in the picture, the framework, the rigidity being pushed against, but actually so we kind of try to kind of explain it and create more of what is that's already not working.
I'm sure like most people have a hard time with their kids eating without like food, or they don't like stuff.
They don't like stuff, and
it's such a boring topic.
It's also a boring time for kids. It's like the most boring time for kids. It gets in the way of their lives.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can be a little bit rigid around the rules of what eating and food and family time around food and what that means, what we make it mean, can create more rigidity. And then they're breaking rules that they don't even know they're breaking. And it all becomes around, it should be this way. And we lose sight of the why. What's missing? What does she need? So we can overcome that and then find a new way in. It's difficult. Food is difficult, but what you don't want to do is create a whole drama around food, that food is the power struggle. If there is a power struggle, I generally say drop it immediately. Yeah. Drop it, and then you start, throw the vase on the floor. So I would say just throw the fucking vase on the floor. Stop trying to keep it safe on a pedestal. Throw it on the floor and rebuild it. Start it again. This isn't working. You can never fix the problem from the place you are. Have to look at it from a different perspective.
Without being prescriptive, could I just share an experience with you
Oh,
that
please.
might be helpful? I don't know.
Experiences are always helpful.
Yeah.
So my younger brother, who's 11 years younger, would only eat what he wanted to eat. And there were six of us in the family.
Yeah.
So if we went to Chinese, he didn't eat Chinese food. My parents would either tell him go get him a burger and bring him a McDonald's burger to the Chinese restaurant. If it was not chicken, if he was entitled. He was like, I'm only eating this. He was stubborn and all this stuff. My parents totally caved to the whole thing, right? He grew up feeling so resentful of my parents that they didn't put the boundary that this is what you're eating, this is what we're having, and that's it. And it's not a conversation. This is just it. So he, as an adult now, was really pissed off. I didn't learn how to eat Chinese food, Indian food, all these different foods. So when my son was at a place where he was like, I'm not eating that, my wife was like, Gabriel, we're going to take a day or 2 days. If it takes 2 days.
Yeah, fine, don't eat it.
Don't
You're not
eat
having
it.
anything
Go
else.
upstairs, you're not having anything else. Just go upstairs. A big tantrum, big upset, the whole thing. It was 2 days. It sucked.
And he was hungry, which makes it
And he
worse.
was hungry. But the next 2 days, he learned to eat what he had, and that was it. And now he eats every single thing that we eat. We don't do they're kids menus. We don't do kids menus.
Yeah.
We just.
But there was also no punishment.
There was no
The natural consequences, you don't get to, that we're just not cooking more.
So there's a lot of I'm finding with some of my friends and their families, and they have such a hard time around food and all this stuff. It's just it's kind of like what's this, probably a terrible metaphor, but the sleep training or whatever. It's like you just say goodnight as your baby is crying and wailing. You close the door and you eat.
Well, it's a different thing because there's a fear element in there. And actually, the thing with the food, it goes kind of back to being entitled. You used the word entitled. None of that was about helping him. All of it was your parents trying to save themselves from the discomfort of his discomfort. So they created a space where he was so terrified of his own discomfort, you become entitled and impossible and demanding. But there doesn't have to be a power struggle because it's not about a cajoling. It's like, this is what we're eating. We're a family. We're eating. Don't eat it.
And
We do that. But she was,
the only
She
other
won't
thing
eat.
how old is she?
she's 8.
The only other thing I would maybe say, and honestly, this doesn't help take it to the wind, but there's no reasoning with the 8-year-old. Their brain can't understand
No.
why, but why can't I have a sugar? Or it's like, you know what? I'll tell you some other time. It's just not. It's just how we do it. We just eat.
And we can't have sugar because your teeth are going to rot. That you've given a reason.
I mean, that is it. I don't think we don't go beyond that.
They're not liking the reason. That's the thing we go. It's just such a nightmare. It's like we have to kind of get used to hearing their displeasure and not taking it personally and not giving it too much attention. Does that make sense? It's like the appeasing and the trying to get her to feel differently about the reality that she's not happy with. It's a lot of air. Because you're not going to get there. She's never going to turn around and go, thanks for that.
I guess I wonder how long it goes on for, because I actually do implement some of these things. She's never actually literally just been like, I'm not eating, and goes upstairs. It'll be like, I'll have one bite. And that's it. I'm like, okay, well then go put your plate in the kitchen.
They do eat when they're hungry.
Yeah.
They do eat when they're hungry.
I find that to be a pain though.
But
What?
When my son's like, I'm full, and he's only eating one thing.
Well, and then they come down 10 minutes later and they go, I'm hungry. But that's still the boundary is, you didn't eat food, so you're not having shit. It is a place of power for them. It's not so terrible to let them have a bit of power.
make the plan, yeah.
Let them not eat.
Yeah, make the plan together.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
That actually would be good.
If they're gonna not eat because they don't like what's on their plate and then don't eat, like fine, but be empowered by that. Like there is a part of like trying to have ownership. Okay, we're gonna get into part 3 because I don't want to keep you guys too late. Anyone have any questions? We're good with letting go of control does not stop you being in charge. Actually, we're more controlled. We have more power.
I found that.
The more the more you're in relationship with them, the more power they feel they have, the more power they're prepared to give. Does that make sense? The more they feel they're being heard and listened to and met, the more amenable they are to the things that you want. It is a relationship.
That's what I found around food. The more power, less I controlled, the more power I gave my daughter, who was a bit obsessive with food, about snack, snack, snack. And the more I was controlling it, the worse it was becoming. When I just said, you're in control of your body, the better.
You trust yourself, know yourself.
She hates it sometimes. Like, you tell me if I should have this or not.
Well, my daughter still does that to me now. What do you think I should have? I'm not. And that's her, her issue around wanting to be guided and putting her back. It's okay, be autonomous. So our kids do need boundaries. They do need to feel contained, and boundaries do make them feel safe. But we also need to understand that biologically, we are going to get kickback from that every step of the way. And at 8 years old is when it kind of starts. So it's not just about food. It's about her having power in herself, feeling powerful, making choices, starting the pushback. She's starting to push you away. She started to kind of.
I see it.
And what happens is, and I think I mentioned this maybe in our last class, is that you get this very weird kind of chunk of time where you get this real pushback, and then you get like this really needy, then 2 minutes later, or an hour later, or 2 days later, or you catch them watching baby movies like The Little Mermaid at 16, because they are growing. We just think they're being insolent little buggers, but their brains are trying to pull away from us and reject us so they can go out into the tribe themselves and procreate themselves and kill a few lions and do all of that kind of stuff. And at the same time, they want to be looked after. And that can be like whiplash for us. First of all, because it's huge rejection. And then it feels like disrespect. And then we get angry and we want to assert our control. And it's harder to do when our kids are coming into teenage years. But it's a very similar thing to when they were tiny, coming into 2, 3, 4. But it's cute when they're doing it then, and it doesn't feel quite as personal. It's tiring, but they're babies. Bless them, they're babies. When they become teenagers, it feels really like a fuck you, and we feel like mugs, and we feel like we haven't got boundaries, and we feel like we're being pushed, and it's not fair, and it's not right, and it's not respectful. But those are stories. We make it about who they are. That pushback is entitled. That pushback is spoiled. Who are they to think they can speak to me like that? We attach it all to mean something else about who they are as a person. So if you remember in the very first lesson, I said, our children are not their behavior. So if you can see her, I tell myself that often, if they're ramping something up, the response isn't, I need to double down. I'm going to step back and be open. I'm going to drop the vase. Okay, fine. What's going on? What's missing? Why is this happening? We'll get to that. So if we've got teenagers pushing against us, and we know that it's biological, a massive part of it, biological, social, cultural, they are chemically dissociating from us. There's studies that have proven that their hearing changes when they get to about 11. So that they drown out. I shit you not, Michelle. They drown out the tone of your voice.
Makes sense completely.
They can't hear it's almost like the volume on our voice. No, that's just insolent, terrible behavior. The brain turns down our voice, which is what they were always attuned to. Where are we? Where are we? Where are we? It turns down, and all their senses are primed for new information. Because they're looking outwards. They're starting to look away from us, not just because they can't be asked with us anymore, because we are going to die and they need to survive. They are the animal race that has to carry on. So it's biologically, it's just what happens. They can't hear us as well. So they're genuinely not listening. So how, if we know this is happening, how can we encourage our teens to keep boundaries that we're going to learn how to create? That would be weeks 1, 2, and 3. From all our understanding of who and where they are in the world, from all of our understanding of learning about them as people, from our new tools and tips and strategies we have around communication. Those are the things. What I was saying to the girls, I don't know if you heard it in the car, was we cannot expect any person, to hear us and listen to us, take our guidance, if they are not coming from a place of feeling understood by us. So the first thing we have to do before we do anything is reflect that we understand. Not agree, not comply, but I understand. And when they're from there, that's where we have power to guide. We need to get clear on real boundaries are. Relinquishing rules and punishment does not translate into not saying no. It's the most important thing. It's not saying no. No is fine. Disappointment is fine. Sadness is fine. They're all fine feelings. And actually, the more we try and protect our children from them, the more entitled they get, because there's an anxiety around it, having it. They want to avoid feeling those feelings. And there's a shame around it. And it doesn't help them to be attuned to who they are and what they really feel. So we need to get clear on what is important and what is real when we're putting together a boundary. Now, this is a thing that I think all the parenting books miss, which is like, this is how you make boundaries. This is what you do. This is what is right and wrong. But I don't know what is important in your house. I don't know what is important to you. I don't know what is important to your culture, your religion, your family dynamic, any of it. That is for you guys to decide. What are the non-negotiable things that need to be happening in your home and why? Does that make sense? So you've got to get clear. Because if everything's a rule and everything's a contained, rigid thing, you can just constantly be backing up against something. The more restriction we have, the more room we have for conflict and disconnection. And that's not being passive. It's not like, oh, I'm afraid of the conflict. Conflict is healthy. So constantly be at one another, because they will just fuck off. They can. The bigger they get, the more space they can take. So you have to make a choice. If you want to constantly be in a battle with them about stuff, fine. You can nitpick all you like. But if you get clear on the really important things, then everything else is up for free speech sort of thing. It's clarity on where our boundaries actually are coming from and what they're about. What is our motivation for it? Why is it important? Anything that is not about our teens' safety and health, in reality, is about our ego. Whether it's how we want to be seen by culture and society around us as the parent of said child, whether it's wanting to still feel in control and feel like the parent, that's ego. It's not a bad thing, but we have to be aware of where we're coming from. This is how we can really get clear on what's really important, so we can reduce the amount of boundaries we need to have, but still have them. So going back to, and if you didn't have any issues with any of these, think about these, right? Look at the rules and boundaries. And I always say rules and boundaries because it kind of gets complicated between, the language around it. Why do you have these things that involve food? Why is food structure around food, structure about eating, whatever? And just tick the boxes. Why is this important? Well, we know there's health because we've got the sugar thing involved. Then society, maybe we've got scaremongered by the amount of sugar. We know sugar, preservatives, all of these are terrible for our kids' guts, and they're all like, you know, can't concentrate, getting sick and whatever. But then maybe there's something else of like what it makes us when we're the parent that can enforce it. So let's just get clear on the things that we are maybe a little rigid about. So maybe it's not like I don't really have boundaries around it, but things that we can find ourselves locking in, and just tick our whys. And it's not good or bad or right or wrong. That's really important. Honesty and clarity, self-awareness is what we want our kids to have. We have to have it. Anyone notice anything? Sure. Things around the house? Wanting to feel they're part of the family. It's important to look after your staff. Da, 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 da.
Probably most strict on this about sports.
Mhm.
Like that's not so for Georgie, but for Ella, because she's got ADHD and we don't medicate her.
Mhm.
Very strict instructions were from the doctor, which were
So we're in health.
oh yeah,
It's her well-being.
yeah,
Yeah.
So that's her medication.
Moving. They need to get, they get their
At
dopamine
least 30
hit.
minutes a day.
So that's a non-negotiable. But then what we have to be very clear on is how it is executed.
Does she know
That's-
she's doing it? She knows. Yeah. So that doesn't mean it's never, and we make sure she's doing stuff she likes. Like she doesn't do anything she doesn't like, and work together to find stuff she likes.
Which is a boundary. You see, there's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's starting to become clear. It does get clearer. Okay, so often we have more than one reason for making a boundary. You know, health and safety tends to come into it, but then there is an essence of I'm the parent, or, you know, our ego does tend to have a part of it. But you start to notice, and I'm kind of saying this now, you might not have written anything down or thought of anything. However, you will, in situations that are going to come up over the next couple of weeks, notice you wanting to maybe enforce some rigidity and be able to ask yourself your question of, okay, I might just sit with this for just a minute and get clear on my why. Like, what is this really about? I mean, I see myself do it all the time. I've got an older kid, and I see that being a big kind of, what does it look like? What kind of parent do I look like if I let this happen, or what, you know, I let that go, or what if do I really have, like, curfew's a really interesting one when you've got bigger kids, and what's being where you're allowed to be, and what's it about? Is it about the time they're home, or is it about their safety? Well, if it's about their safety, then it's not really about a time that you're home, but it's about something else. It's about something else having to be in place, and it's fucking hard work. So if the focus is not your teen and their ultimate well-being, then we're coming from ego, and we just have to accept that. I need to have control. I need to feel safe. Right? You want to just fucking feel like we've got it in hand. Or to comply with a cultural norm. You all want to be good parents. Especially good mums. I'm sorry, I don't know if you want to be considered a good dad, but I definitely feel like I want people to think I'm an amazing mother. It's there. It's in my psyche. You know, especially doing what I bloody do for a living. Shit. People have really got it, you know, come on, Sid. Be a good advert. Just do what I say. So we're taking over who we think our child is, or who they should be in our eyes. You know, so even like, can I still love my kid if they are a bit entitled? Or do I have to find a way to show them how to not be because it's unlovable? It's not about self-acceptance, is it? There's the person is telling her on some level, if you're entitled, you're wrong. There's great guys that it's difficult to be in the world if you are, which is true, but then also what kind of parents raise entitled children? They want to be that parent. So your ego is telling you that you have to teach them something else. We just have to be aware of our ego. It's trying to protect us. When we can see we're acting from ego, we can navigate more flexibly. It's a little bit like with the let them. Once you can kind of see that there's something else going on, we can be a little bit more open about how we execute something. The more flexibility we can have, the more connection and communication we will maintain. The more connection and communication we maintain, the better guides we can be. the more they can hear us, the more they're tuned in. So let's look at it as sand and stone boundaries. So once we've got clear on our why, and we can understand that anything that is about their health can be stone, anything about health and safety and keeping them alive can be stone. When I say alive, mental health, hygiene health, these are the things. Really, outside of that, it's all up for discussion. Oh, but there'll be feral in the world. Okay. Not going to be your problem by the time they're 19. They'll be gone. Yeah, let them be fucking feral. Let them blame you. Let them say that you should have been stricter. All of those things. You never, you can't get this right. But if you know that you've been really firm about keeping them alive, then you've really done your bit. Because really, that is only your job as a human in the world. Really. Just keep them alive so that the human race carries on. So if we can refer to anything that can be flexible as a sound boundary, so it might be no sugar, but no meal times. I mean, if you really want to throw it out, fine. Okay, don't sit at the table. Help yourself from the fridge. Whatever you want, as long as it's not got sugar in it, and you can eat it any time of day. I mean, you could probably do that for about 3 days and she'll want to sit down to a meal. But I'm taking it to an extreme. So the curfew times, what sports they choose, the sports they need to do outside she needs to be, but the way she executes that, do it your own way. When, not if, they do their homework, but really also if. Don't do it. But I'm sending them to private school and it costs so much money. But that's your choice.
Yes, you say that. So when
I know.
Here,
Yes.
I wasn't forced to do my homework ever.
No.
No one had eyes on me.
No.
I had the time of my life.
Great.
But I did no work.
Great.
And I wish someone had eyes on me and actually put some boundaries in around doing my homework.
Yeah. Why?
So I would have learned to study, to work.
You did learn to study.
But you did learn to study.
When I was in my 30s.
Mhm. Because that was actually the reality, was that was when you still did.
For most of my life.
Studying doesn't make you feel clever.
So not succeeding at school makes you feel stupid because that is how it
Mhm.
was recorded. It definitely didn't fulfill my academic success that I now know I could have had.
But you don't know that that would have been from having someone push you. You have a story that had you been pushed, it would have been easier to watch their child. Yes, but that's a big. But you're taking it from one extreme to another.
So I do think you do
Because
have to-
being in here, this is flexible. This is not in the room,
yeah.
right? And if you're looking at your kids and you're invested in them,
Yeah.
and you can see, but if you're getting resistance, you maybe, we don't know. We're not living two parallel lives. We don't know how you would have responded to having the eyes on you. But you believe that had you had eyes on you, you would have flourished.
But it
Or
would
done
be
better.
Done better and not maybe thought I was.
And had a space held for you.
Yeah.
This is still offering a space.
Yeah.
And it's also offering autonomy.
Push back, and we do need to
Absolutely.
hold them safe and be like, I get you want to go.
If you say to me, I'm telling my kid they've got homework, they've got things, I'm seeing they're not doing them, they're failing at school, I would say to you, stop nagging, because you're clearly seeing me, because you're already nagging and it's not working. This is not your parents, right? People come to me because they can't seem to get through to their kids, right? I'd be like, stop. It needs to stop, because none of it's about the work. None of it's about support and work. Let them get in shit at school.
But they don't get in shit.
They don't need to get in shit here, because these kids end up doing their work. They have parents watching them, helping them, supporting them. They weren't. You are.
I think you do need to have your boundaries in it.
We'll talk about what the consequence is, because you're saying about not having a boundary is a free-for-all. I'm not saying that it is. A boundary, a flexible boundary, is not being present in it.
But you say
It's not enforcing. Can't stand over your children.
We don't say, don't do your work, you might get to school, you might fail, that's that. But we're not saying if you don't do your work, then you don't.
Then you don't what?
I don't know. Like there is.
You don't stay at the school because you can't stay there. It's very expensive, and if you're failing there, it's not good. That's a natural consequence. No, because there's a natural consequence to not showing up in your life.
Mm-hmm. If you want to be at the school,
But hounding your child is not.
Yeah, but if you want to be at the school, you need to do your work. Otherwise, we're not going to pay for the school.
But that's a healthy boundary that is flexible. There's a flexibility to it. You don't then get to say you need to work at this time and this time.
Mm-hmm.
A good example. Being on your screen and playing, I don't know, FIFA or Roblox or whatever, what people play computer games. If you're great, if you can play it as much as you like, but schoolwork comes first and isn't rushed. It's done well. So there's the flexibility. The boundary is, the expectation is that the work will be done, and I trust you enough that we're going to try and do it. Go to the report meeting, and you're like, really need to step their shit out. You know, they're a good kid. They're really capable of so much. They seem to really be rushing their work. The conversation would be, this expectation is not being met. So what are we going to do? Because the boundary is there. The boundary is the container. You didn't have the container. But it's still a sound boundary. You can't stand over them and make them do it. We just can't. We actually know we can't because we can't. And a school like this would actually would work with you. I can really see they're not doing their work. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to say anything. I'm going to kind of let them fall and see what happens, how it builds up. If they're just not doing it, let's work together in the background. Because I know they need to learn a different way of being. Places they go, sound boundary. Who they're with, how they're spending their time, parties they can go to. These are sound boundaries. In the same way, Jodie, that you don't want it to be a free-for-all. In the same way that you want it to be a conversation. In the same way that it's like, well, I don't want you at that party because actually it's in the middle of God knows fucking nowhere. And I'm scared, I'm worried about it, and I'm not ready for you to do that yet at that age, or 11, it's a no. That sort of thing. And then you've got the stone boundaries where there is no room for negotiation because it is a health or safety issue. General hygiene. Brushing your teeth. Healthy eating. Especially with teenagers. Like, youth, it's a different struggle. They just won't eat if you don't actually put food in front of them. Especially right now, I'm throwing food at my teenager because she's working. She will bypass the kitchen, and if I don't feed her, she just will not eat. Just put it in a pack.
That's where that's the struggle that I have internally, like that it's going to develop into like actual problems when she is.
I would never judge if the plate was still full. So I will model, I will show up with the food, but I will not create a power struggle around how much is eaten or not, because you know yourself, eat what you want. She's got to learn to eat what she wants and show up when she's hungry. Yeah. Does she go food shopping with you ever? Do you ever ask her what she wants?
Yeah.
Get her to do it with you, maybe. Get her to help you. Get her to look at some cooking recipes. Get her more involved.
Yeah. And she does.
Make it more fun. TikTok's great for cooking stuff.
Yeah.
Well, do you not have it? Like, do you not have reels, Instagram reels?
Yeah.
I don't have TikTok either.
Something like that.
Bella does it with her, she cooks it into it.
Yeah.
But you can look up recipes anyway. You can buy books.
Which I have. I do that.
And she could get more involved.
And she does like
give her some autonomy.
I noticed that in other situations as well. Like the more she's involved, the more she does actually respond.
And
I've seen it. And like actually play out.
So
I
that's
know it does work.
Yeah.
You're saying like I'm here listening to you, and I can see these things happen.
Yeah.
In other scenarios.
It'd be really interesting to keep me in the loop on that. Social media restrictions, but around mental health. So we get very clouded with the the scaremongering of society and culture and the science that's out there, and all of that is very true. But we also need to be eyes, like Jodie's saying, eyes on our kids. Is this a problem for them and their mental health, for their like anxiety levels? Are they not able to focus? Then we have to lock down on what that boundary looks like, because they don't have the impulse control. Okay, which comes to my next point. So stone boundaries are our responsibility. Like that's just, I mean, all boundaries are our responsibility, as Jodie's saying, but we tend to run into a problem where we have an expectation or we have a boundary, and then we expect them to kind of implement. And we get irritated at them when they don't, and we get irritated at them when they fight us on said limit. And really, we have to just expect the fight and reflect to them how we can be regulated in holding the boundary. That's our work. Our work isn't to say, I've told you something that I know doesn't suit you, but I have a really good reason for it, and now you're not allowed to be disappointed. No, you can be disappointed and I can keep my cool. And that's actually where the work is. Because we get pushed to a point where we flip into the shaming, the criticizing, the over-explaining, the you should feel X about this because my reason is good enough. And actually, I don't really give a shit if our reason's good enough. And so it really has to be our internal work to be less triggered by their reactions, be less frustrated by their disappointment, be less afraid of them. You get a bit afraid of their, like, can't deal with it, can't deal with the backlash, it's going to mean this. And we get more, like, we end up a small child asking them to desperately give us what we're asking for. And actually, we need to be able to assert, be the parent.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Were you guys talking about this new book, Let Them?
Yeah, I was just reading it.
It's right there. Roberts, right?
Yeah, I was just reading it before, but it was kind of intense. I can't remember what I referred to it, but so we need to really be able to have our boundary. But that's really, boundaries are really about us deciding what is important, us getting really clear on how important it is in terms of power struggle and backlash. Is it worth holding? And then being adults in holding it. Okay? So we blame them and we shame them and we punish them when their response doesn't fit with the response that we want, or the alignment, the agreement. I've overexcited to explain to them. They don't know it. It's just, and it's frustrating. It is frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. But the more self-confidence, the more self-assured we are inside of ourselves, we can keep our cool. And that's our job, because we're modeling it to them as well when we're doing that. So our job is to hold our calm and stay contained. We don't get to control how our teen feels, right? We do get to have a boundary about what's acceptable behavior for us in terms of like being abused by them and just, you know, treating us like a piece of shit and saying that's not okay. Fine, you know, I'm not going to be here for that. I'm not going to be the punching bag. But we need to be able to do it without losing our shit back at them, if that makes sense. We need to do our work. If we can learn to contain our temper, then we're creating a healthy boundary relationship, right? If we don't learn how to control our temper, our panic, our loss of control, what are we modeling to them about not getting things their way? So I've even written it here. Why does my kid constantly lose their shit, get sarcastic, be aggressive, or slam around when they don't like the boundaries I set? And I say, do you be aggressive, be sarcastic, get sulky, or be defensive when your kids don't show up the way you want them to? Direct cause and effect. we huff out the room because they're being difficult, what are they going to do? They're just, they're playing to type. We're really good teachers. So, I was saying this earlier, like with toddlers, teens are the same. It's more triggering for us. It's more difficult for us. They're also bigger than us. They have a different, they don't have to fucking comply anymore. They can storm out the room and shut you out. Whereas when they're little, they're just so desperate for your approval, or they have a tantrum and the emotions are too big. But it's quite simple. Like we lose them. Their impulse control though it's not there. It's not there for us. We think it is. We think, we have massive expectations of the impulse control our kids should have at all ages, actually. We don't have good impulse control, do we? Extra glass of wine, bit of chocolate, bit of sugar, bit of this, bit of something in between meals, whatever it might be, whatever hedonistic behavior. We all have it. Shopping, no, not me. But when a boundary is broken, even if it's homework or an excuse, I didn't do it, because something else has taken over, right? An urge that something that's more interesting, which, let's be honest, usually with homework, it doesn't take much to be something else more interesting. But any of these things that kind of will happen, or even the wanting of the sugar, the urge is so big. The bad teeth is irrelevant. Like we know that eating too much sugar can give us diabetes. We all probably still eat too much sugar. There's just no one can tell us no and hide it in a top cupboard. But we know the realities. We read articles on it all the time. We shouldn't eat processed foods. It's giving us cancer. We should be less stressed. It's giving us cancer. But our urges to maintain our lifestyles is too big to keep going. So if we know how hard it is to manage the urge, we can understand that what they're doing is not a lack of respect. It's not a slight on us. It's a very normal human response with a very underdeveloped brain. And if we know that, doesn't make it less annoying, doesn't make it less difficult, doesn't make it less of a lesson that we need to kind of support our teen in learning, but we can be more patient and compassionate towards it because it's less personal. That makes sense? We've talked about the prefrontal lobe in other sessions, so I'm not going to go into it again. But knowing that it doesn't work, knowing what we're really dealing with, it really does help, because we lean in with less judgment. We lean in with less dominance. We lean in with less control. We lean in with more about what's the missing skill. All right, okay, so if your brain's half developed and my brain's fully developed, how can I help? So we have a boundary, we have an expectation, it hasn't been met, it's been broken. We don't lean in with the, I told you, you were meant to just know the rule and do it. It's like, oh, okay, well, that didn't work out. What was going on? What was happening? Let me lean in, let me understand before I guide. Someone always says it's really annoying. Connection. I can't remember who says that. Do you remember when our kids were learning to walk and they were like little drunk people? Where they walked around, they were like, bashing into shit. They were like little drunk people. But now we are dealing with adult toddlers. It's just like, but we really, really, really are. So with this in mind, and the importance of boundaries and the importance of guidance and the importance of our kids being heard so that they're more open to our guidance and understand that we're going to get the pushback against it, can we accept that the lack of prefrontal lobe and the biological pushback against us in order to go out and like kill their own lions means that we're going to have to say the same thing 1,000 times? And then making the same mistake again and breaking the boundaries consistently isn't about lack of respect, and it isn't about them being bad, entitled people that just expect the world to revolve around them. It's the fact that they are teenagers, and it's not that we don't want to keep teaching it, but we don't ever get results by screaming and shouting and punishing and pushing and shaming and dominating. We get shut down. Proven neurological shutdown. And in terms of the brain being scanned and seeing the parts of the brain that don't work when voices are raised and tensions are high, you literally see the red coming across the scans, that they can't actually take in the information. You get a shutdown response, but also you get a disconnection, which means your ability to have any power is gone. And so you can make a choice, but just know it's not going to work. And do the work to be able to hold the boundary yourself. So our job is to be able to stand our ground and accept that our teen's going to be unhappy, disgruntled, angry, not agree, not think it's going to happen to them. I mean, literally things like cycling on those stupid bikes without helmets. Like, they don't believe they're ever going to die. So telling them it's dangerous is like, it's air. So it's like, how can I make the environment safest? How can I help? How can I help them learn, not help them just do? Because we don't ever just do from just hearing someone say something. No one ever actually genuinely learned something really valuable by just going, oh, someone told me. It was like, oh yeah, they did that thing and then I did that and it didn't work. And so now I know they were right. Have to be an experience. And what we really want to do is be the sounding board. If we're always shaming and dominating and punishing, they're never going to come to us, right? But if we're not doing that and they come to us and we're never shaming and punishing and dominating, we're exploring, then they don't feel ashamed or embarrassed to come to us and say, I did that thing that didn't feel good. And you don't go, yes, I told you not to. That's a really stupid thing to do. No one's ever going to respond. They go, oh, what happened? This happened. Shit, that must be so embarrassing. That's awful. You didn't want to do that, did you? There's so much more room for them to go, no, I didn't want to do that. And that, I'm going to use an example if anyone's interested. Even if you're not, you're sad, you have to listen. My daughter did something really, really like stupid on New Year's Eve. It's like a full-on teenage moment. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. And we discussed it at great length, and I think she kind of got it. But actually, one of the parents that she got home very late and then came home on her own and the parent let her go home on her own. And I was like, whoa, I mean, late together is bad, but like, what the fuck? How did they let her go home on her own? Like, that's just, she's alone. Like, talk about vulnerable. And it became a big topic of conversation about how to handle it, how to mention it, what to say. The fact that danger has got nothing to do with being 17 or being 47. It's about women on their road, on the streets, at night, vulnerability, who knows, da, 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 da. And she actually came afterwards and I didn't think, genuinely didn't think. And listening to this and listening to the conversations you've all had and everything, said, I just would I'll never not think like that again. But all of that could only have happened if she hadn't walked in the door and I'd gone, you are grounded, that is ridiculous, you are so disrespectful, I can't believe you did that, how stupid are you? Every wall would have gone up. I'd been like, I'm out of here. And it was lent in. I mean, I knew exactly where she was and what she was doing, and that was my priority. I was like, curfew is one thing, but if you're stuck somewhere, i.e. New Year's Eve, I just want to know every 20 minutes where you are, what's going on, if you managed to find an Uber, who are you with, whatever. And she always does that. So she was being the good kid. And then she did something really, really stupid that hadn't even occurred to her that was a dangerous thing to do. But if she'd been in trouble for it and punished for it, she just would have done it again. I needed to take the time, it took way longer, but that's what you have to do. And stand ground of what happens next. Okay, so why we can't keep boundaries. I'm very mindful of time. I'm being really slow. Oh my God, it's 8:15, guys. I'm really sorry. I will flip through, be very, very quick. Can't keep boundaries because if we can't keep boundaries, it's because we were raised by people to do as we were told. So our teens' discomfort is too overwhelming. So we can't bear the uncomfortable feeling. That's our work, not theirs. That will end up in entitled children, just saying, because we're saving them from their feelings, because we're saving ourselves. Issue with set boundary ourselves, then we eat too much shit. We're not organised. I'm sorry. I have to go now. Okay, read part 5. Your homework. What to do. What needs to be stone boundaries. What do we do instead? Okay, here's the thing, guys. I've literally got 4 pages left. I'm happy to do a Zoom. I won't be able to get space, but I'm happy to do a Zoom next week if you want me to finish it with you, or you can finish it on your own. It does take you through it. Yeah, I'd love to finish it with you.
Yeah.
I would do what I can't do it next week. I don't think.
I also have to do it next week, but yeah. I can't do it next week, but I could do the week after.
Okay. I'll put it out there and then I will stop this. Oh, I'm pleased you guys actually want to come back. I thought you were going to say, no, can't be bothered.